So in this video, I wanted to do a quick roundup of some of the most popular Chinese fountain pens sold today. It's not in any way an exhaustive list, just kind of the ones I've picked up over the past few months. And just for the record, I'm calling these Chinese fountain pens as a useful shorthand. I realize there's so many fountain pens made in China, and some of them are from Chinese brands, some aren't. So it's just kind of a useful shorthand. So I feel like everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say that. So we have the Wingsong 3007, the Wingsong 3003, Wingsong 3008, the Cali Arts Ego, Jintao 992, and the Kako Edge. And these are some of the definitely most popular Chinese fountain pens sold, but there are a lot of others. I'm definitely missing some of the more popular ones, or some of the popular ones. But I feel like this is a pretty good representation. And again, these are the ones that I have been interested in and that I wanted to purchase. Prices range from about $1 or so shipped, maybe $1.50 shipped for something like this Wingsong 3008 to about $20, maybe $16, $18, depending on where you buy it. For the Kako Edge, the Cali Arts Ego is maybe in the $12, $13 range on eBay. And then the rest are the sub $5 range, pretty much. The prices fluctuate a lot, but they're all quite affordable. So I just kind of wanted to run through each quickly and then talk about my favorites and least favorites. And just, we're gonna be moving quickly, so let's keep in mind that I've done full reviews on almost all of these, and the ones I haven't done full reviews, I will follow up with soon. Starting off with the Kako Edge. This is the highest end pen on the list. It uses a macrolon body, so that's like a reinforced plastic, like a fiberglass almost. Clearly inspired by the Lamy 2000, but the pen has some interesting features to it that sets it apart from the other pens on this list. The biggest one is this Schmidt nib. It's a German nib, a German medium, in fact. So it's actually a fairly wet nib. It doesn't write the way you would expect a Chinese fountain pen to write. Aluminum section, again, that macrolon body. This is a cartridge converter. All these are steel nibs, so I'll just get that out of the way right now. Some people have complained about the cap on this breaking, but mine's been fine, so something to look out for. And we'll get to the writing towards the end. Just worry about the features right now. Wingsong 3003. This is a very popular pen, very affordable, but for me, writes very dry. This is one of the least enjoyable writers on this list, despite it being one of the ones I was most excited about buying. It looks like a Pilot Pereira with the kind of smoke plastic at the ends and this curvy clip. And I like the Pereira, so I was excited to get this one. This is push on, push off cap, not a squeeze cap. Also a cartridge converter. And I have this one in I believe an extra fine. So this one was really dry, not very enjoyable writer for me. Maybe I should have gotten the fine, but not one I tend to use. I do like how it looks, though. I think this is one of the best looking, if not the best looking, of the fountain pens we'll be looking at today. Clear section, clear feed, nice looking nib. Just I think it's a pretty handsome pen. So Wingsong 3007. This is a copy of the Kako Sport. Pretty clear copy of it. It's again, push on, push off. Clear section, which it looks pretty cool. Clear, I guess that's a, yeah, clear feed. This is a, I believe it's a cartridge converter, but I don't know that it actually sells a converter. It just comes with this one cartridge. Build quality of this one is actually fairly poor. It's kind of like, again, it's $1, so it's hard to complain. But you can see some splattering from pulling the cap on and off. It's fairly common with when you have a pull cap with some good suction on it. This is a really small pen, so you have to write with it posted, and the post action definitely does not feel as nice as the Kako. So interesting pen, and it's much cheaper than that the German one. I think it's German Kako, but yeah, not one of my favorites. A fairly nice writer though. Whatever they did with this nib, this Wingsong super quality fine, This one is a really nice writer, so I find it hard to disparage too much. This is the Wingsong 3008. So this is sort of looks like a TWSBI 580 to my eye, maybe the Eco, whatever you want to call it. This is a screw-on, screw-off cap, kind of a larger, more solid looking pen, especially for the selection we have here today. This is one with a Lamy style modular nib, so you can slide this off and slide a Lamy nib right on there, which is very cool. I love the idea of a modular nib. I have a bunch of Lamy nibs, so this is a great fit for me. And actually like the Lamy nibs most of the time, but some of these Wingsongs are surprisingly good. Clear grip. And this one is a piston filler, which is pretty incredible to see in a pen that sells for like $3, $4, whatever it is. Really nice capacity. The fill mechanism is like a little questionable for me. I haven't any problems. It just doesn't have that sort of really nice polished feel that you would get from a TWSBI or a higher end pen. It's a really popular option. It checks a lot of boxes. Quality on it is okay. It's like this cheapo clip. It actually works well. It just, to me, it just does not look very nice. This like cap and finial area, it just looks very plasticky. You could see where the coated plastic is starting to lift up at the end there. It just like, that's stuff that is, if the company avoids it, the pen could look a whole lot nicer than it actually might be. This is the Cali Arts Ego. Sells on eBay for about $13, $12, something like that. Has a sort of weird lifted clip that I don't like. But here's an example of a company that used a little bit better intuition, for at least for me, with the parts. You can see it's just plastic here, and it looks a whole lot nicer than if you tried to make it look like chrome. Like clearly, to my eye, this is a piece of chrome with plastic. Whereas this is like not trying to be anything except what it is. Screw on, screw off cap. Splatters a fair bit. This pen is, I've just found it to be really messy. And I would say part of that is my fault. Was when I got this, it barely wrote. It was just super dry. So I had to sort of spread out the tines of the nib a little bit to get it to write. But now it splatters. So maybe it's not my fault, but definitely not ideal situation. Nice build quality here. You can see really clean looking design to the feed and section. There is a little O-ring here. So for fit, a lot of these companies have had problems with the caps cracking or the bodies cracking. So if you put an O-ring there, it prevents over tightening. Really nice piston system on this. So again, this looks a lot like the TWSBI 580, and this piston converter, or piston filler rather, works really well. This is as good as the TWSBI from what I've seen. And you can just see I like the use of orange there. Just looks cool. This is definitely one of the nicer pens in the class. Last we have the Jintao 992. This is a small pen, but to me this is a big step up from most of the other Chinese fountain pens. Just uses much cleaner styling. The clip is really nice, really firm, solidly made. All the little hardware and pieces are just really well done, and the sort of rough edges have been either not put in place or polished out, and just all the little pieces are done much better than on the other pens here. So I've tended to buy Wingsongs because I like how they write, but this Jintao makes me feel like that company has a level of polish that Wingsong maybe doesn't offer. Really nice looking nib. I bought this one in the fine, and this one's a great writer. This is the best writing fine Chinese nib out of all these. If you open this one up, you can see good build quality. Again, there's that O-ring. Just like nice, clear plastic. Looks really well done. This is clearly a cartridge converter. The converter looks a lot like the Lamy, the Z26 or whatever it is, Z28, something like that. Check out my videos for that I guess it would be the Z27. But yeah, no leaking, really nice build quality, and does a job. Screw shut. The only thing I would note about the Jintao 992 is it's rather small. Let's look at it next to the Cali Arts Ego, just for reference there. Size-wise, I've had these next to each other for a good part of the video, but just we'll do it one more time. Yeah, there you go. So basically that Wingsong is a fairly full-size pen, kind of the size of a Safari. Cali Arts Ego, about the same size. Kako Edge, good size. And now we're into, you know, kind of a medium-sized pen with the Wingsong 3003. Jintao is capped. It's about the same size, but once you take the cap off, it's a good deal smaller. And then, of course, we have this sort of 3007, which is essentially a pocket pen. Just for reference here, we have this is a Pilot Custom 74, and we'll put it down at the end here. It is about the same size as the Wingsong 3008, but the Pilot has a little bit more body to it, a little bit more cap. Here is it next to the Ego, and just here's it next to a 3003. So, size comparison out of the way. Let's do some quick writing and we'll wrap this up. Yeah. Again, check back for the full video review of each of these, or put any questions at the bottom. I'll address them in future videos, because I know this one's getting to be long. This is the Wingsong 3008. This is a nice writer. I like this one. Smooth, clean, fine. And then the fact that it is modular and you could swap it out with a Lamy nib is just such a clever idea. I don't know if like how cool Lamy is with that, but that's a huge perk for me, and I like that sort of cleverness. And that, again, just to be clear, plus for this one, good writer. Now we have the Cali Arts Ego. This one is not as smooth. This has a little bit more feedback, which is not a bad thing. And these are all fines unless otherwise noted. More feedback, but good line, some line variation if you press. And just pretty solid. Like, definitely no complaints with this one. I don't think it has as much to point out. It's not as like special feeling to me as some of the other ones, but it's very good. Now we have the Wingsong 3007. This is one of the nicer writers here. This is a pen like normally I would just not really have in any sort of rotation, but I then tend to pick it up now and then. Definitely on the wet side. It writes more like I mean, I guess it writes like what it is, which is a very wet, fine, maybe tending towards a medium as far as the amount of ink that goes down. It's very stiff. No real variation, but you could just write for this really quickly and it'll keep up with you all day long. Again, it's probably too wet for a lot of people that are buying in this category, but I find it to be very fun to use. Now we have the Kako Edge, and then this is that Schmidt nib, very wet. It's a medium, but it writes like a German medium, so it's putting down a lot of ink. And when combined with this is with the stock Kako cartridge, this thing, some of the dry times for this will be like 30 seconds, 40 seconds. You go back to this, and you will see that that ink stays wet for a very long time. I know some people like that, but I had wished I had purchased this one in a fine or maybe even extra fine, just because it puts down so much ink and it's so wet. It's fun from like a signature standpoint, but I don't find it to be a very practical writer. With a different ink, it might be better. Wingsong 3003, I think I noted before, this is my least favorite writer out of the bunch. It tends to be dry, and I've done what I can to spread it out, but it does not, it dries out over time. It's a little bit on the scratchy side, and again, it just sort of, it misses a lot of strokes, and I just don't find myself really enjoying this one. And again, maybe I got a dud. I'm sure quality control is not super spectacular on a dollar pen, but has not been a win for me. And this isn't the first 3003 I've had. I've had probably, maybe 4 or 5 of them. And this is the Jintao 992, and this one is a really nice writer. This one, to me, kind of has to be capped when you're writing, or posted rather. And this is the Jintao 992. And to me, this writes a lot like a Pilot Fine. Very smooth, good ink flow, limited feedback. It's just about smoothness. Fair bit of ink gets put down, almost like a medium type amount of ink. But, so maybe more like a Pilot Medium, but very smooth, very easygoing writer. I think this is sort of what a lot of people are looking for from a Chinese fountain pen that costs maybe, $3 or whatever, but writes like a pen that costs, easily 10 or 15 times that. So just to wrap this up, if I can get this out of here, just to wrap this up, out of these pens, I would say for me, the big winners are the Jintao 992. This is definitely a good pickup for me. Solid writer, great quality control, and I've had no problems with this pen. It's a little too smooth for me. That's just my personal preference. Then we have the Wingsong 3008. Really good writer, and it definitely benefits from that interchangeable Lamy nib. And I'll do some, the Lamy style nib, and I'll do some follow-up videos with how that works and that sort of thing. The definite skip for me, Wingsong 3003. Nice looking pen, just as an underperformer. Build quality is the worst of the bunch for me as well. And that leaves us with sort of the ones in the middle. These are must buys. This is an avoid. 3007 Wingsong. It just kind of writes nice and is very wet. It's a fun writer. I don't tend to use it day to day. I have the Kako, and it just is, it's worth the extra 10 bucks for me, because I tend to use these a fair bit. So while I like that how cheap this is, I kind of can't really get behind it. Cali Arts Ego, it's a nice writer, nice piston filler, and but it just like has some weird quirks, like with this clip here, and I don't know, it's just sort of like mixed reviews, but it's a lot of value for $12. And if you're looking at a TWSBI 580 or even a TWSBI Eco, I would say check this one out. But those tend to be better writers, so I guess ultimately I would say if you're buying the 580, check out the Ego and save yourself like $40. But if it's between the Ego for $15 and the TWSBI, the Ego for $15 and the Eco for $28, then it's kind of more of a conversation for me, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the 580. I think it's overpriced. So knowing the Ego is an option, it's interesting, but not a pen I tend to grab. So maybe that's just the true indicator. Lastly is the Kako Edge, and this pen has a lot going for it. Really good build quality, nice styling, regardless of how you feel about that styling. Has that German nib, so it's really solid. It's a Schmidt nib, nice writer. Puts down too much ink for me in the medium, but definitely a cool pen. At $20, I think it's a lot of value, which you're probably getting the equivalent of a $50 or $60 pen, maybe even more. But it's a little too wet in the medium, so if you do pick it up, get it in a fine. Yeah, I like it. I wouldn't put it in the must-have category, but I put it in the definitely interesting category if you want to augment your collection. So just to wrap up, I would say the two to really keep an eye out for are the Jintao 992 and the Wingsong 3008. I know the quality of these tends to vary from pen to pen, so you may buy one and it may be a complete lemon, but you know, if you go ahead and go buy a second one or a third one or a fifth one, you're still spending, you know, under what you would for just a, you know, a Lamy Safari or something like that. Lamy Safari is going to have great build quality every single time and great quality control, so you know, there's definitely some trade-offs here. If you have to get just one, I would say pick up the Jintao 992. So that's it. Please leave your feedback below. I know a lot of people out there know a whole lot about these Chinese fountain pens, and it's not necessarily my area of expertise. So thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with me to the end.